Welcome back to the November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Ascension Parish Zoning Commission. All members with the exception of Mr. Chasson are present. Can we get an introduction of staff since we have some different staff here?
Jamaica Banker, Zoning Secretary.
Spencer Long, Parish Attorney.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Lance Brock, Zoning Official.
All right. Item number 3 on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the October 13th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion on that? Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor? Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item number 4 is the chairman's comments. The chair has no comments tonight. Item number 5 is a public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code for recommendation for approval or denial to the Ascension Parish Council to amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code Section 17-2087, signs, off-premises sign standards. Mr. Brock, you want to address this before we open a public hearing on this?
Sure, yes, sir. The strategic planning back in May of 2021 made a recommendation for legal counsel to draft the proposed billboard ordinance to refer to the Planning Commission for recommendation to the council. Since that time, Spencer has drafted an ordinance, and it's in front of you, and that's what's in the hearing is on. Basically, what they wanted to do is they wanted to draft a billboard ordinance, the guidelines for distance, for stacked billboards, and also it's for implementing a cap on billboards, existing billboards. And that's the ordinance that you have in front of you, and that's what they wanted based on the strategic planning meeting, and that's for recommendation or accept or denial to move forward with this.
What would that do to existing billboards?
With the existing billboards the way it's written, they would be allowed to stay, but there would be a cap on them, meaning that there wouldn't be any new ones being able unless you switch out.
What about double-decker billboards? Would they be allowed to stay?
Yeah, they would be non-conforming.
Until they get switched?
Until they get switched.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this matter, Ms. I'm sorry. Ms. Jamaica, has anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, Scott Jones.
Mr. Jones? And just remember, you have 3 minutes to speak, so let me turn on the light.
My name is Scott Jones. I have Jones Signs, and DigiClim is our billboard company. We're from Dental Springs. We have a few billboard structures in Ascension Parish, working on a few new ones currently as we speak. I'm not opposed to some of the measures y'all are wanting to implement or considering implementing in regards to the single stack or even the 1,000-foot distance. But the cap I am opposed to for a number of reasons. One, the 1,000-foot minimum is going to, by nature, limit how many more structures you can even put in the parish. You already have a lot of restrictions on most of your highways where you can even put structures. Airline is predominantly where you have some availability left in a few other places. But when you do this, you're going to hurt your small companies like me. That I have employees that live here. I've had employees that lived here for a while. You're going to limit my ability to grow, and I'm nothing compared to Lamar, but Lamar oftentimes likes these regulations because it creates a monopoly for them, and it hurts people like me. But it also hurts the businesses because you've put a finite number on the number of structures, so necessarily the price is going to go up on that advertisement space. And so that's going to affect your local businesses as well because it's a more valuable commodity at that point. And I'm not for Wild Wild West and having boards everywhere, but to just say we're having no more, it's going to have adverse effects, and it only helps one company drastically, because I have a few, they have a lot. And there's a couple of other companies that have a sizable amount in the parish. So I'd like for you to consider at least removing the cap part of it, because it does cause harm to your businesses and to small business people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, my name is Trey Robertson, the General Manager of Lamar Advertising. And Scott's right. I'm for this, what I'd consider smart growth initiative. We operate billboards here in Ascension Parish and across the country, and we've been happy to be, investing in Ascension Parish and partner with companies throughout the parish to help them promote their businesses. I became interested in this issue about a year or so ago when a permit was pulled to build a billboard about 50 feet from an existing billboard. And I was surprised at the time to learn that there were no spacing requirements within the parish except for within the city of Gonzales, who's already passed a spacing ordinance of 1,000 feet. And then, as Scott mentioned, on state-controlled roads like Airline Highway, there's a 300-foot spacing. I doubt that any planning and zoning commission would be happy with a billboard 50 feet from another one. That's, basically creates a lot of visual obstruction and could be unsafe. I don't believe that the regulations currently on the books have kept up with your pace of explosive growth in your parish. So if you look up and down Airline Highway, almost every 300 feet is a billboard. A lot of companies have built stacked billboards where there are 4 billboards on one pole. There are many places in your parish within a 500-foot stretch, there are 12 billboards in that area. That creates the kind of visual clutter that gives us all a bad name that are in this business. I'm estimating that there are about 400 billboards in Ascension Parish. I handle the 5-parish area for Lamar Advertising. We have 60, not Lamar, I think there's 1,600 billboards in the 5-parish area. You guys have 25% of them in the parish. At any given time, again, an estimation, I think 25 to 30% of the billboards are unsold. So you've got 100 options for your small businesses that can still be purchased on a day-to-day basis. If this ordinance passes, you'll never have more billboards than you have today. And so I think it's responsible for you guys to consider these proposals, and I urge you to pass them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No one else signed up.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Mr. Dumas?
Staff, I got a couple of questions for you. So billboard is non-conforming. This ordinance gets adopted and the billboard becomes non-conforming. They're still going to be able to change the graphics and everything.
Correct.
Can they upgrade it? I mean, upgrading it from a pasted board to a digitally significant cost.
It doesn't.
Will they be able to upgrade it?
Yes.
So is that going to be clear in the ordinance?
Is it going to be cleared in the ordinance? Not in this
I mean,
ordinance.
when you take it and you upgrade something that's not conforming, there's a limit to how much you can spend, generally speaking, right?
Yes. But it doesn't, this ordinance does not address what you're asking.
Okay. And if it fails, let's say the top falls off, but the pole's still up, can they put it back up? They'll still
Yes.
be able to put it back up?
The restrictions outlined in this district above do not apply to any sign structures existing at the time of the adoption of this ordinance.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Scheck-Snyder?
The only thing that I really kind of have a concern with is the cap and replace. I do share some of the concerns that one of the speakers did mention about, we all know that there is a big juggernaut in this market, and if we are unintentionally creating more monopolistic activities by having that cap and replace. So the only real question I have is, are we really allowed to make suggested changes in this ordinance before we push it along or make that recommendation for or against? Is that what our goal is here today? Or do we just need to look at it as this is how the ordinance is presented and whether we up or down it from there?
I submitted to you what the strategic planning requested. So I don't know if you have anything to deal with. You can add things. That's more of a legal question. I believe you can, but it wasn't advertised with certain things in the ordinance. It was just advertised that we're amending this ordinance or this part of the code, I guess you could say.
And I would agree with Mr. Brock that if y'all wanted to add some recommendations to it before it goes to the parish council, that would be okay.
Hold on, it's not your turn. Ms. Hutchins was next.
I do think if you have too many billboards, it can start to look cluttered. And I've always been a fan of places like Hilton Head and Naples where their billboards can only be a certain height and it's not everywhere that you go. But I didn't see anything in here about how tall. Did I miss that, or is there a restriction on?
No, and there's not a restriction. I don't know if the state has a restriction on height or not, but the parish does not, no.
So if you already have a billboard in place, then it doesn't really affect you at all. But if you own a business and you want to put up billboards, you can't.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Dumas.
Generally speaking, billboards, the surrounding environment regulates the height more than anything else. The state, the feds do have some guidelines, but, obviously if you're on Interstate 12 and where the pines are nice and tall, you're going to have to be above the pine trees. And if you're down here where the oaks are shorter and squattier, you can be a little lower. Because height does affect the cost of the billboard. I like the cap. I think, the fact that you can still replace an existing billboard in its location regardless of the setback, because it's a non-conforming location, is a reasonable compromise. So if you're ready for a motion, I'll make a motion to recommend to the parish council that they amend the ordinance accordingly.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any second?
Real quick for discussion.
Hold on. All right, now you're good.
Would you be willing to amend it to eliminate the cap and replace, or is that still something you really strongly feel about?
I feel strongly about it.
Okay.
We have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll make a substitute motion that we proceed forward with the ordinance as written with the removal of cap and replace.
All right, we have a substitute motion to recommend the ordinance removing the cap and replace by Mr. Schexnayder.
And Matt, let me make sure, my motion is to recommend for approval to the council.
The ordinance as is with an elimination of paragraph 3 regarding cap and replacement.
Yes, sir.
In other words, there's not going to be a cap on the number of billboards. It'll be handled by the 1,000-foot distance.
And the only other thing we can do, this is at discussion though, I think we have a second, but if we have anything else that we can potentially add, Mr. Dumas he does have a valid point. So is there something that we want to add into that? We have an opportunity.
We did get a second. So let's proceed to vote on that. And if somebody wants to make a substitute motion, we can do that. So we will vote on the motion that's been seconded by Ms. Hutchins or Mr. Varnado. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
No.
All right, we will, we're going to go to a vote. I'm opening the voting machines. Please indicate your vote. All right, I'm going to end the vote. Everybody's in, and the vote is 5-1 in favor of the amended ordinance. So the motion carries. Staff report.
No report.
And number 7 is a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned, and before we adjourn formally, we'll say goodbye to Ms. Hutchins, who is moving to Birmingham, and thank you for your service. It's been very pleasant.
Birmingham, Alabama?
Meeting is adjourned. Some would say God's country.